All right, let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good morning, Robert. My name is Claudio, and I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Robert Reed accepted our invitation to the show. Robert, welcome to the show.
Welcome to you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Rob, let's go back to the beginning of your life. Were you born like in a musical family? How old were you when you perhaps began taking, I don't know, guitar lesson, piano lesson?
Yeah, I wasn't born in a particularly musical family. My mother played the piano and stuff, so there was a piano in the house. And I just loved the sound of a piano, really. And one of the first records I heard when I was young was David Bowie, Life on Mars. And the piano part in that was incredible, and I loved it. And I didn't know it was Rick Wakeman playing the piano part on there.
Yeah.
But as a young kid, I just loved this piano play, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. So I started piano lessons at a very young age. Did it. Didn't practice enough. I got bored, But then I got into rock and roll, and I loved all the sort of prog bands. And when I heard Tubular Bells by Mike OLDFIELD, that sort of really switched me on to learning to play all the instruments, really. So guitars, bass, and keyboard. I loved the idea that one person could multi-track and make a record. So from Rick Wakeman's piano and Mike OLDFIELD's playing all the instruments, that got me into doing music, really. And since then, that's all I've done, really. That's all I can do, really. I'm rubbish at anything else. So it's music all the way.
Right. Good for you. When you were like in high school, 15, 16, were you able to buy some record? Were you going out to some clubs with your buddies and during the weekend to listen to some music? Or
where I live in sort of I don't really live near the center of much going on, really. It's out in the countryside, so there was never loads of clubs and bands would tour sometimes in the local university, but I wouldn't really go to see many bands. But I would always buy these records. It was a local record store, and in school we put a band together in school, basically. We were all into prog. We all loved Genesis and Yes. Mm-hmm. So, about 14 or 15, we put a band together, and every night we go and rehearse and started writing songs. And bizarrely, the first band I was in was Cyan. We called it Cyan, and we wrote like 4 tracks, and we put all our money together to go into the studio, made a demo, and those 4 songs are on the new Cyan album. I've relaunched Cyan like 30 years later, but they were the original. I wrote all that when I was in school in this band. Wow. And it kept me on the straight and narrow as well. So it was a bit of a rough area where I lived, but we were just doing music. That's all I knew. So every night we would get together, listen to records, rehearse, and dream of being in a prog band. And that was my youth, really.
Yeah, and eventually you finished. That's a great story. Eventually you finished high school, right? You knew back then that you want to be a musician, or any pressure for your parents? Forget about music. You're not going to make any money. Go to school and get a decent job. And
no, which is great. They could see that was all I thought about 24/7. And I had a few jobs for a couple of years, working in a library and stuff. Easy jobs, where I could just skive and not do any work. And then I go out and rehearse in the night and write. But then I got into doing working with a composer that was doing TV music and film music. So I learned from him, and I stopped doing normal jobs and worked for this composer doing TV music. And I did that for about 20 years. And that allowed me, no, it was less than that, it was about 10 years I did it. And it allowed me to earn a lot of money so I could buy all the gear and he had a great recording studio. So I was learning how to work the mixing desk and everything. And I was writing the music with him for these TV programs. And it allowed me then to do that in the day. And then I could do my music in a band. So that's all I've known, really, to be honest, since for the last 30 years is just doing music 24/7 in some shape or form. So I'm really lucky.
Good for you, man. My understanding, I read somewhere that the 4-track studio recording that you did, you end up sending that to different record labels, like in Scotland and in England and several countries, and eventually somebody got back to you and say, "Hey, we like that stuff," and you say, "Well, we had a bunch of kids that we did that, during the summer. Feel free to elaborate on how that happened."
That was exactly it. We made this demo on a 4-track basic studio, but it was lovely. Being in a studio was amazing. It was like, God, we sound a little bit like Genesis. This is incredible. So we made this demo on a cassette, and I sent it to a few people I knew and forgot about it. And then about a couple of months later, I had a letter back from Nick Barrett from Pendragon.
Wow.
And he'd heard it and loved it. He said, "Oh, this is amazing. I'll pass it on to a record label in Holland called SI Music." And they came back and said, "Yeah, we want an album's worth of stuff. This is brilliant." And I had to say, I said, "Well, that was like, we've all left school. They've all moved away. It's just me." So I made the record on my own with like a drum machine. And I sang it and played all the instruments on it because of my fascination with Mike OLDFIELD, playing all the instruments. And I made the first record and it did really well. And then we made a second one, and this was Cyan. And I made 3 records alongside doing all my TV and film music. And what the biggest catalyst was, like, I was doing the film music, earning a lot of money doing that. And the sort of Cyan was a bit of a hobby. And it was like, I like doing it. But in the meantime, me and the girl singer from Magenta, I'd met her and we'd formed like a pop band. And we were trying to be like a pop stars. We were trying to get, a mainstream record deal. And we spent 10 years doing that. So I was doing Cyan as a hobby, TV and film music. And then my main goal was to be like a pop star and to do this pop music with Christina, the singer from Magenta. And we did it for 10 years and it nearly killed us because it's such a cutthroat business. And we were being let down. We would have terrible managers. Record deals would be offered to us and then the record company would go bust. So in the end, we said, no more of doing this pop star nonsense. And I said, look, let's form a prog band. I said, look, let's do it, and we'll do it properly. We'll get Christina to sing, and that was Magenta. And we made this record, and everybody fell in love with it. And that was Magenta.
Yeah. Christina has an unbelievable voice. I have listened to, I listened to, as I was preparing for the interview, most of your album, and I saw some YouTube videos. She's a very nice, humble, and unbelievable lady. Remind me a lot of Annie Haslam of Renaissance.
Well, that was it. When we started when we started Magenta, that was my blueprint, because I'm a massive fan of Renaissance. I like the way they mix classical music with the female voice. So I said to Tina, I said, look, let's make this prog band called Magenta. Let's do it. Let's make it the most proggiest we can. Let's make a double album, a concept album, 20-minute songs. And when we did that, which is like 20 years ago, prog was a dirty word. It was a swear word. Nobody wanted to be prog. And a lot of the big bands now who say we are prog, they didn't want to be prog. 20 years ago, in the late 90s, nobody wanted to be prog. And we were like, I'm going to make the most prog album I can. I'm going to say I am prog with a capital P. And we did it. And Tina had no idea that she sounded like Annie Haslam. I knew it. I knew it. I could hear it. Oh, God, she does sound like Annie, which was like really strange. But we made the record and everyone was like, oh, my God, it sounds like Renaissance. And Tina was like, well, I've never heard Annie Haslam. Who is she? But then we we became friends with her then, which is bizarre because she heard the record and we ended up making a record with her.
Yeah.
But it was really it was just a really lucky moment when we did Magenta back at it was about 2000. You know, we made it, and it was no one else would making prog like that, and we did, especially with a female singer, because Renaissance was back in the 70s, and it was like you had Marillion IQ and Pendragon and Solstice in the 80s, but there was no female singers really.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So we came out with this, and she's a great singer. She's an absolutely amazing singer. And then it did really well, and the first album sold, and then it was like, oh my God, we're gonna have to play this live. People were saying, come and play in our festival. And I was like, oh my God, it was only meant to be an album, a one-off album. And then we ended up going down to play in Baja down in Mexico. That was our first gig, and it went on a storm, and it just took off then, and we ended up making, I don't know, 10 albums. So
believe it or not, before we start going into a Magenta question, I of course within Cyan you play with very, very good musicians, you know, Luke and Dan, of course Pete Jones that I interviewed from Cam as well a couple of times.
Yeah.
And very good people. Pete is a very good, decent human being. I love the guy. He's a very humble guy, and with all his limitation, you wouldn't know that he have done everything I've done. Unbelievable. Sometimes I look at my own problem in my life and I say, man, what the heck? If people can do that with a loss like me, what's my problem, you know?
No, that's the thing with Pete. He got such a talent, but I will only work with people that are nice people. You know, it doesn't matter how good they are. I would rather work with someone that is not as good as someone else if they're a nicer person, because you've got to get on with these people. And having someone who's a pain in the arse in the band is it's horrible. I can't have it. So I will search out lovely people to be in the band. So, and the other thing, I'm a massive, for me, with music, the vocalist is everything. The singer is everything on a record. The singer is the most important thing. And in prog music, lots of people get that wrong. They think that the guitar solo, the Moog solo is the most important thing. You know, the singer is just there to fill in. And it's so wrong, because the singer connects with the audience. And, you know, so you've got to have a great singer, and you can't cheat it. And so many prog bands, they go, it doesn't matter if the singer's not that good, as long as you got this 100 miles an hour riddle, and it doesn't work. Especially, and I think for me, the best bands have got the best singers. You know, you listen to Genesis, you know, Phil Collins, Peter Gabriel, Pink Floyd, they've got great singers and great melodies, and that's the two things. So with Magenta, I believe I've got one of the best female singers. And with Cyan, I got one of the best male singers. And I am blessed to have that. But it's so important. Without it, I'm nothing. Do you know what I mean? I can make as good a record. I can tart it up and throw the kitchen sink with production. But if the singer is rubbish, forget it.
It's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. You're
get it.
Well, you work hard. You are lucky. I don't know. Maybe luck is not the best. I suppose you were in the right place at the right time. You have like a vision and a good strategy. You know how to sound like, and you find the right personnel to, help along to form the project. You know, it's no question about it.
Well, that was it. You know, because I'd known Pete for like about 10 years now. I've known Pete. That I run a label that puts out his solo material, the Tiger Moth Tales and stuff. When we put that out, and I've been helping him, and I avoided recording anything with him because he was so busy doing Camel and his own stuff. I didn't want to add to his already bonkers schedule. And I thought, no, I won't have it. And then someone said, oh, look, just try him on one track on the Cyan. Because the Cyan, as I said, was re-recordings of the earlier stuff I'd written in school. And I'd re-recorded them without the vocal. And they just said, oh, look, just try him on one track. So I phoned him up. I said, look, just try it. See what it's like. And the moment I played it, I went, that is incredible. You know, this is it. I've got to do it, and people love it. They absolutely love it. It's different to Magenta, which I like, and it allows me to do these two projects, which I love, with a female singer and a male singer.
Well, good for you. Let's talk a little bit about Magenta. Your second album, 7, was released in March 2024, and sold out of his first pressing within 4 weeks with the single Broken. That's a masterpiece album. I mean, it's great. It's great.
It's straight, because that is our best-selling album, 7, and it's the one everyone loves, and I've tried to recreate, what I did on that record, and you can't, and it's like,
no, of course not.
I think we were lucky, because I did the first record where it was like, I didn't know if anyone would like it, and then the second one, I thought, God, everyone really likes it. Let's go. And there was an innocence on it, an innocence of writing, and it's very optimistic as well. The music is it's not like doom and gloom. It's optimistic prog, and it just connected it with everyone. And then you're trying to think, oh God, but I also like each album to sound different. So when we did 7. The next album was completely different, and then the next one we went to a different direction. But that's the one that everyone likes, and it's just I don't know why. It's some great songs on it, but there's an innocence in the writing. I'm not so. I think as you get more fans and you do more, you're always sort of second guessing. What do the fans want? What do the reviewers want? And there's a bit of that goes on. And what have I done before? I don't want to repeat what I've done. So there's a lot more rules when you're writing. When I made that record, there was no rules. I just made it, and
Yeah. As a band, I suppose you don't want to recreate the same thing, because then the second album will be very similar to the first, the third to the second, the fourth, and so forth. You want to have a solid base, and we are aiming to do this type of music, and you are evolving. With perhaps some musician leaving and going, like as part of life, and but having the same success criteria for creating music, and improving, changing, and touching different things, and it's great. All the bands need to evolve over time. So
it is that, and I get bored very easily doing. You make a record, you're like, at the end of it, it's like, I don't want to hear that kind of music anymore, or at least for a year. So I like to go and do something else. So I do Cyan, I do Magenta, but I've also got all my solo stuff, which is completely different again. The sort of Mike OLDFIELD inspired solo records. And I made like an electronic record. But it's nice to go somewhere else for a year. Because when I make a Magenta record, by the end of it, I never want to hear prog with a female singer again. Do you know what I mean? It's like I've got to sort of rest from that, clean my musical palette, go and do something completely different. So when I done that record, I'm sick of that, and then I think, I really want to do that now. I go back to that.
Yeah, what's the motivation inside yourself to cap 3 different bands, with 3 different style of music project, and say, you wake up in the morning one day or 1 week and say, man, I'm tired of Cyan. I want to do my own music, and I want to start playing with this guitar riff and drums. And how the process? How's the motivation, and how's the intellectual process for you? It's you're in the car driving with your wife and kids, and you listen to a melody, you write it down, you go home, or you
I love being in the studio, and you can see this place, and there's a drum room and all my guitars and stuff there. And I'm very lucky to have a setup. When I was 18 or 19, I never dreamt I would have this kind of gear. I can make a record here every day. I can come in, make a record, put it out, and people will buy it, and which is an amazing situation to be in. So, but I get excited every day coming in the studio. I love the process of I never cease to get a hit from hearing the layers going on and the creation, you know, coming out of the speakers. I'm making a record. I love it, but as I said, I get bored if I do one style. I think I would go mad if Magenta was my only band, and I look at other bands people who are in one band and they just do this, you know, and again, God, I would go. It would drive me potty because you've got to have a release, and there's so many styles of music I like. You know, I like prog, but I also I love ABBA, I love ELO, I love Supertramp, I love anything with a song and a great melody. So I'm like, I want to do a bit of that. I want to do a bit of this, bit of that. And if anything, I see myself as a producer. You know, I love producing music, and I love sort of it's just the excitement of creating. And I just come in and I just noodle. And I got my phone, and on my phone there's a little recording app, and I could just be playing any guitar, and I think, oh, that's nice. There's a nice couple of chords, record it, and then come back and then go through all my little ideas, and they become songs, and away we go.
People reach out to you for help, like as a producer, because you're multi-instrumentalist, you have 3 different bands. People reach out to you, man, I really like your albums. I'm starting out, you know, can you provide some feedback? You know,
it's really weird that, you know, but 20 years ago, I did a lot of session work, playing keyboards and stuff for albums and stuff, and I say all the TV stuff and the film stuff. But these days, everyone has got a computer. And they all think they can play a piano, do you know, because they can plug it in one note at a time. That'll do. Do you know what I mean? Like, so the call for a real piano player or keyboard player, because everyone just does it. They do their demos, they keep the keyboards on there, and then they put live guitars, and you know, you don't get a feel. You can be able to play it properly on a piano and stuff, which I love playing. But I don't know. I got so much I want to do. I would get distracted, I think, if someone said to me, oh, you know, come and make my record for 4 months. It's like, oh, my God, do I really want to do that? You know, even though I get paid. And I did a lot of stuff with the, because I do a lot of 5.1 surround mix, which seems to be in vogue, you know, the 5.1 surround remix and stuff. You know, lot of bands like Yes and Genesis they've had all their back catalogue remixed in this surround, and I got involved in that a bit, doing a few bands. But actually some of the Renaissance stuff, I was sort of looking at that, doing some of that. But I just think I didn't really enjoy it, because for me it's already been done. To be honest, those records sound as good as they are. You know, if you try to remix it, you're never going to get anywhere close to. It might be clearer, it might have more separation, and you know, but it doesn't. You can't compete. You can't mix a record on a laptop or on an Apple Mac, where the original record was recorded on a $200,000 mixing desk on 2-inch tape. And, you know, with amazing speakers in the studio, and the band were there, and they knew exactly what they wanted. So I did a couple of remixes of this Renaissance stuff, and I just thought, it doesn't sound as good, anywhere near as good as the original. Why am if I get paid for this and put it out, I'm cheating the audience, because it's not as good. It's not as good. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I hear a lot of these remixes coming out, the 5.1, and I go, okay, it's nice and clear. You can hear everything. But it's nowhere near as good as the original. The original might be a bit rough and ready and a bit sort of muffled or whatever, but the vibe on it, the way it's been mixed, because that's what the band wanted. So there's a lot of money to be made with all this remix stuff, and I'm not a fan of it. I don't get it.
Yeah. You remind me a little bit of Steven Wilson, that he has like 3 different bands, with No Man and Porcupine Tree, and he keep on doing the remixes. I mean, he's very good at what he does. I mean, you know, some people have the ability to do that.
He does it, you know, and it's very lucrative, and the record companies make a lot of money from repackaging it. but I don't think they're as good as the original records. You know, I like listening to them. All the Yes ones he done, I like listening to them because I can hear all how clear. You know, there's like clear. You can hear everything. I think oh, that's really nice. With like Relayer, which is one of my favorite Yes albums. I love Relayer, and I put on the remix, and I thought, yeah, it's really clear. I can hear everything. I can hear what everyone's singing and all that. But then I put on the original one, and it went a little bit more muffly. What a vibe! What a vibe on it! What a power! And it was like, you know. So, but yeah, you know, and I think going back again to the Steve Wilson thing, and it, you know, to be able to earn enough money from doing progressive rock or anything, any music, you know, it's really hard just to do one project.
That's right.
Financially, you've got to have 2 or 3 because you've got to be able to release at least 2 or 3 albums a year to be able to have a life to pay, you know, to pay the way. So I can do a Magenta there, and then I can go and do a Cyan later on, and then I can do my solo, and then I can come back and do a Magenta in 2 years' time, and it all goes, and then the back catalogue and stuff. You find new fans who go back and buy all your back catalogue. But you know, I know how lucky I am, and I thank everyone who buys my music. You know, there's a massive thank you because it allows me to do what I do. But then I see it. It's like it goes back to Mozart's time, where you'd have all the rich people being patrons and giving him money, you know, paying it to allow him to compose. And for me, it's a deal I make with these people that I will give everything to the record, and I will make sure that it's recorded properly with proper drums and proper mixing and mastering and proper strings and everything. And I will do it to the highest in return for their money, you know, and I will make it as good as I can. And we have this agreement, which I love, and hopefully they love. People know that if they buy a record I've made, it won't be recorded on a laptop and thrown together with synth drums, or, you know, it would be done properly to the highest level, and which you've got to earn that reputation, really, which hopefully I have over the last 20 years. But I'm very lucky. I keep on saying
I imagine that you have a very loyal fan base going to Bandcamp and buying your album, as you know, supposed to Spotify and Bandcamp. As people, if you don't know, the company only take like 10%, and the 90% go to the musician. And every so often they have like a Friday, you know, all the money goes to the musician. That's a very good model, you know, and people in some cases pay as much as you can. Some people can pay $1, some people can pay, you know, $10 or £10 or whatever, and it's go back to it's
brilliant. I think Bandcamp is the best. It's a fantastic business model because as I said, you take a small percentage, you get paid straight away. Because I'm not a fan of all the streaming, Spotify, Apple Music, all this stuff. I'm not a fan of it. I hated it. The moment the day Spotify launched, I remember saying, "That is it. We've had it. That's the end of it." When you can pay like $5 a month and have every record that's available and listen to it as many times as you want, it's just natural. Why would you go and pay £12 if you can just play that album and again and again and again? And it's all this nonsense of, they'll discover my music and then they'll go and buy it. Rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. The only people making money is Spotify, and they are screwing and destroying the industry. That's all they need, and that's all they need to do. They need to charge a small fee for every time you play the album again. They should not be able to dip in and play an album 1,000,000 times. And lots of people come on to me and they're like, why can't we get your music on Spotify? You know, I'm like, but you don't buy any of my records. So you want to go on Spotify and have it for nothing. How am I to pay the bills? You know, how do I pay the string players? How do I pay the bass player? It's not free.
Right, yeah. Of course, yeah.
You've got to have
people nowadays want everything for free, you know.
Well, it's totally.
Book online, and you know, it's crazy. You know,
it's bonkers, but with the Bandcamp, it's a place where if people got more money, they can pay extra if they want. That's great, fantastic. Again, it's part of the patronage that they know that all the money I make, because it's all I do all day. I don't go on holidays, I don't go around. I make records out of the money. The money goes back into the business. So, it's a strange place at the moment. And I think the whole Spotify argument is just grim. I think it's really hard. And because it's hard enough anyway, because, the price of a CD is less now than it was 15 years ago. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're paying like $10, whatever, for a record. 20 years ago, it was $15 for a CD, and people complain. And I'm like, I've spent a year and a half making that record. You're moaning about paying $10. You pay that on a coffee. You're going to Starbucks or you buy a pizza. And it's like, pizza is gone, but I'm giving